industry began. It was a industry that was specifically for people who had a lot of money that wanted something unique. And so there was a few manufacturers out there that produced some really small, intricate, interesting designs of vehicles that so that you didn't have to use a horse. Well, Henry Ford in 1908 created or started the Ford Corporation. In 1915 was the General Motors that started their company as an investment group. And then Chrysler in 1925 created the Chrysler Corporation. And during this time, Ford was building cars, and he was trying to figure out new innovative ways to produce a vehicle in an economical way so that it could be mass produced. Ford came up with an assembly line which reduced the cost of creating a car. He came up with presses and different ideas to save money. The first Model T that rolled off the line was $975 for that car. The cheapest Model T that came off the assembly line was $260. His innovation reduced the cost that much. GM, since it was an investment company, they did not look at the economy the same way Henry Ford did. Ford wanted to put the money back into the company to make a better product. GM wanted to keep the money because it was investments. They had to pay the stockbrokers, and they had to pay the people who bought stock and all these things to satisfy those that had investment in the company. Chrysler started out slow, but eventually got in. And when the war started, World War II, they got more involved. They had Jeep, and they were building Jeeps and all kinds of other things for the military and small scale. Ford got into airplanes and transport vehicles for the military. They didn't build cars during the war because everything needed to be for the military. GM and Chrysler still built some cars, but they got a little bit into the military because GM built motors for airplanes and a few other things. After the war, all were looking for ways to sell vehicles to return GIs, because here they were coming home, they were wanting to get married, they were wanting to have families. And so then, boom, here comes the 60s. People were looking for cars that were sporty, not quite family oriented, something the husband could run to work or the wife could drive around, be a little more sporty. Ford came out with the Mustang, Chrysler came out with the Barracudas, and Mustang just took off like a bolt of lightning. Barracudas hardly sold anything because they were more produced more toward and advertised more for a manly type car, where the Mustang was kind of like for every. Well, as time went on, Ford got into the space program. They built all of the electronics and the control center for NASA for the space program in the 60s and early 70s. They were partnered with a company called Philco, which Ford owned. Once that was the space program had ended in 74, they sold off Philco. Once that was done, Ford continued to run innovations in their company. And then in 2008, here we are, we have a big recession. And the recession was the greatest recession we've had since the Great Depression. During this time, Ford was the only one that didn't take out money for a bailout. GM took huge amount of money, billions and billions of dollars. Chrysler could afford to keep their foot or keep afloat. And so they sold off, after taking out bankruptcy, it was sold off to Fiat for $2 billion. And Fiat was able to get it back on its feet. GM, the only reason they're still around is because our president decided that it wasn't economical to let such a big corporation go underneath, and the loss of jobs where the other manufacturers would have made up the difference, and concern wouldn't have been a big loss. And so Ford still today has some of the best selling vehicles. The F-150 sells more F-150s than any car on the market today, and their vehicles are top of the line. They're going to be less prone to problems, and Ford has been the company in the entire of its history that's been out there for the consumer. They're trying to build a car and a vehicle for the consumer that will withstand everything that a person does to it. It wasn't just built to drive on pavement. It was designed to go everywhere. Unlike the other manufacturers, when they first came out, were just designed to run on pavement. So the next time you're thinking about Michael, remember your Ford dealer. Best car in America. Thank you.